After my father's funeral, a secret bank account exposed the lie my mother told about me. My name is Claire Whitman, and I was 34. After my father's funeral, my mother made me stand beside the coffee urn with a sympathy card basket. She said, "Help where you belong." I asked where I should sit. She looked at the family table and said, "Guests don't sit with family." I held the basket. I said, "Then I'll stand." But here's what my mother didn't know. Inside that basket was one envelope in my father's handwriting, the first proof that he had not died believing her lie. If you have ever been made useful at a table where you should have been loved, stay with me. Like and subscribe if you believe dignity is still a seat no one can take. To understand that envelope, let me take you back to the house where my mother first learned how to erase me without raising her voice. The first envelope I remember was not the one in the funeral bag. My father slid it toward me with a roll of stamps and a blue pen. "Date first," he said. "People forget what they said. Paper doesn't." My father's name was Martin Whitman. He fixed clocks, radios, lamps, and the kind of small machines people kept because they had belonged to someone. His shop sat between a dry cleaner and a barber. The front bell made one tired little sound every time the door opened. He smelled like machine oil and wintergreen mints. He was not a loud man. He did not win many arguments, but he noticed small things. My mother noticed them too. She just used them differently. Diane Whitman worked part-time in the church office. She knew who needed a casserole, who had surgery coming, and which widow preferred yellow roses over white ones. People called her thoughtful. They did not see how thoughtfulness changed shape when she came home. At church, she remembered every birthday. At our house, she could forget I was still standing by the sink. We were the kind of family that paid the electric bill before buying school shoes, then called that being responsible. Our refrigerator had church calendars, appointment cards, and coupons held up by magnets shaped like fruit. Nothing looked wrong from the street. She could make wrong look tidy. In my mother's house, love was not given. It was assigned like a chore. If relatives came for Sunday dinner, I filled glasses, carried plates, and wiped the counter while my cousins sat down first. If someone noticed, my mother smiled and said, "Claire likes to help." By the time I sat down, the good rolls were gone. When I won a small scholarship from the Community College Foundation, my father wanted to take a picture of me holding the letter. My mother slipped the envelope under a stack of mail and said, "Don't make a production out of it." 2 days later, a woman at church congratulated my parents, and my mother touched her chest like she had personally built the scholarship with her bare hands. "We just tried to raise her with discipline," she said. I stood beside the bulletin board and learned how easily a person could steal applause without raising her voice. At my high school graduation, my father asked if I wanted to stop for pie after the ceremony. He said it like a secret. He had already picked the diner. My mother put a hand on her forehead before we reached the parking lot. She said the gym lights had made her dizzy. My father drove us home. I ate a sandwich over the sink in my cap and gown, while she rested on the sofa with the television on. She never had to say I did not matter. She arranged the room until I understood it. My father saw more than he admitted. That made him kinder. It also made him weaker in the places I needed him strong. On the nights my mother went to church meetings, he let me sit at his workbench. He gave me broken alarm clocks and showed me how to line up the tiny screws on a dish towel. He taught me to write dates on envelopes, receipts, and notes. He said a date was a little nail in the wall. It kept a story from sliding around. One December, he gave me a small tin box that had once held peppermint bark. He had sanded the rust off the lid. Inside, he put 3 stamps, a pencil, and a folded index card. On the card he had written, in his square shop handwriting, "For things worth keeping." I kept report cards in it. I kept birthday cards from teachers. I kept the note he left on my pillow when he missed my school concert because a furnace pipe burst at the shop. It said, "I am sorry. I heard you sang well." That note did not fix the empty chair. It kept the empty chair from becoming a lie. For years, I thought those dated envelopes were just my father's little habit. I did not know they would become the only witnesses my mother could not silence. I was 22 when the first real break came. My grandmother had been sick that spring. My mother told everyone she had been at the nursing home every week. She said it in the church hallway with a cup of coffee in one hand and her sympathy face already in place. Then she looked at me. It was a small look. It said, "Agree." I did not. I said, Dad went most Tuesdays. I went when I could. You went twice. The hallway changed. Not loudly. No one gasped. No one dropped a cup. The woman beside the bulletin board took one slow step away from us, as if truth had become wet paint. My mother smiled at me. That was worse than anger. In the car, she waited until my father started the engine. Then she said, "You make everything difficult." She did not yell. She did not need to. The sentence had been used so many times that it already had a hook in me. If dinner was late, I made everything difficult. If I asked why my name was missing from a card, I made everything difficult. If I told the truth when a prettier version was available, I made everything difficult. That night, she changed the story before I could even take my coat off. She told my father I had embarrassed her in front of church people. She said I had enjoyed it. My father stood by the sink with his sleeves rolled up. He said my name once. Claire. Then he stopped. His silence sat there between us like a chair no one would move. I moved out 3 weeks later. My first apartment had one window, a stove with 2 working burners, and a bathroom door that did not latch unless I lifted it with my knee. I bought a used card table. I slept on a mattress on the floor. I called it freedom because I needed it to be. The first Sunday after I left, I called my father. My mother answered. She said he was resting. I called on Wednesday. She said he had gone to the shop. I called the shop the next day. The phone rang until the machine picked up, so I wrote. I wrote one letter in May. I wrote another in June. I wrote about my apartment, my classes, and the little boy in my attendance office internship who kept hiding under the front desk because school made his stomach hurt. I did not write about my mother. I did not ask my father to choose. I only wanted him to know where I was. No answer came. I told myself he needed time. Then I told myself he was ashamed. Then I told myself the thing daughters tell themselves when they do not want to hate their fathers. Maybe he loved me in a way that could not cross a room. Years passed in jumps, not in a straight line. At 24, I got a full-time job as an attendance coordinator for a public middle school. That title sounds smaller than the work. It meant I knew which children had missed 12 Mondays. It meant I knew which mother changed phone numbers every month. It meant I learned that a missing name is never just a blank space. Somebody removed it. Somebody forgot it. Somebody hoped no one would ask. At 26, I sent my father a birthday card to the shop. It came back with a yellow sticker. Return to sender. No forwarding address. I put it in the tin box. I did not know my mother had seen it first. At 28, I ran into Ruth Bennett outside a grocery store. Ruth had sung alto in the church choir since before I was born. She looked older. Her hair had gone silver around her temples. She held my hand between both of hers and said, "Your father asks about you sometimes." The words hit so hard I forgot to answer. Then my mother came around the end of the aisle with a cart full of canned soup. Ruth let go of my hand. My mother looked at me, then at Ruth, then at our hands as if she had caught us stealing. In the parking lot, my mother walked beside me for 6 steps. "He gets confused," she said. "Do not start something, you will not finish." It sounded like warning. It sounded like care. That was what made her dangerous. She always put a clean cloth over the blade. I asked if Dad wanted my number. She looked at my face the way a cashier checks a coupon. If he wanted it, she said, he would ask me. That sentence did its job. It sent me home with my phone in my hand and my pride sitting on my chest. I did not call that night. I wrote instead. I wrote my number on a card. I dated the envelope. I mailed it to the shop and to the house. Neither came back. Neither was answered. What I did not know was that my father had started answering me in the only way my mother did not expect. He opened a savings account in my name. He did not tell me. He did not send a big check. He took small amounts from shop repairs, old tool sales, and the little cash people paid when they did not want a receipt. $20, $50, sometimes $200 after Christmas, when people brought in broken clocks from their parents' houses. Over the years, the account grew to $74,600. I did not know the number then. My mother did. That was where her story changed. Before the account, I was the difficult daughter who would not come home. After the account, I became the daughter who only cared about money. It was a better story for her, cleaner, easier to repeat. It made my absence look greedy instead of wounded. She told my cousins I had a handout somewhere. She told women at church that money made people show their true character. She told my father I had received what I wanted and still refused to call. Every lie had the same shape. Diane stood in the middle as the tired wife. My father stood beside her as the disappointed man. I was placed outside the frame, holding a check I had never seen. The last time I tried to reach him before his death, I left a voicemail at the shop. I kept it short. Dad, it's Claire. I just want to know if you're okay. The machine cut me off after the word okay. I stood in my kitchen with the phone still against my ear. 2 weeks later, the shop number stopped working. I did not hear that my father was sick. I did not hear he had been moved to hospice. I did not hear he had asked whether I had changed apartments. I heard he was dead from a woman who was not my mother. The message came on a Thursday morning while I was at work, checking a list of absent sixth graders. It was from Ruth Bennett. She wrote, Claire, I am sorry. Your father passed last night. I thought someone had told you. Someone had not. I sat at my desk and looked at the attendance screen. 12 children were marked absent. One father was gone. One daughter had not been called. Then I opened the bottom drawer and took out the tin box. The card inside still said, For things worth keeping. I put it in my purse before I drove to the funeral home. The funeral home was 3 blocks from my father's old shop. I had driven past it for years without looking at the sign. That morning, I parked across the street and sat with both hands on the wheel. The tin box was in my purse. The card inside it was older than some of the cars passing me. For things worth keeping. I went in at 10:14. I remember the time because I wrote it down. That is what my job had trained into me. When a child disappeared from the attendance list, I did not start with feelings. I started with time. Who last saw him? Who signed him out? Which door opened? Which name was missing where it should have been? A missing name is never just a blank space. It is a handprint. The funeral director was a small woman with gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She asked if I was family. I said, I'm Martin Whitman's daughter. She looked at the folder in front of her. Then she looked at me again. That pause told me my mother had arrived first. The woman did not ask the question out loud. She turned one page, then another. Mrs. Whitman already collected several personal items, she said. His wedding band, his watch, a tie, some photographs. Of course she had. My mother had always understood the power of holding the objects first. If she held the watch, she held the marriage. If she held the photographs, she held the family. If she held the tie he would be buried in, she could still dress him one last time for the story she wanted told. I asked if there was anything left. The funeral director lowered her voice. There is a small box. It was marked for you. She left the room and came back with a cardboard box, no larger than a shoebox. It had a white label on the lid. The label said, Personal Effects Martin Whitman. Under that, in blue ink, someone had written, Claire only. My mother had not seen that part. Or she had seen it and decided the box looked too harmless. Inside was a folded shop apron, a pair of reading glasses, a receipt from a hardware store, and one sealed envelope. My name was written across the front in my father's square handwriting. Claire. Not Miss Whitman. Not my mother's version of my name. Just Claire. My thumb stopped on the ink. For a second, I was 10 years old again, sitting at the kitchen table with stamps lined up in front of me. Date first, he had said. Paper doesn't forget. This envelope had a date. 6 weeks before he died. I did not open it in that room. That was the first right thing I did. My mother had taught me what happened when Truth walked into a room without shoes on. It got blamed for tracking mud. I asked the funeral director for a copy of the personal effects receipt. She gave me one. I asked her to write the time she handed me the box. She did. Her pen scratched hard against the paper. She did not ask why. Then I stepped into the hallway and called the number printed in the corner of the envelope. A man answered on the third ring. Mr. Hale's office. I said my name. The line went quiet for half a breath. Not long. Long enough. Then the man said, Miss Whitman, I was hoping you would call. His voice was careful, not warm, not cold. Careful is the voice people use when paper has already told them more than the person on the phone has. I told him I had an envelope from my father. He asked if it was sealed. I said yes. Please keep it that way until I arrive, he said. That was when my pulse moved. Arrive where? I asked. The luncheon after the service, he said. Your father asked me to be present if any estate matters were discussed in front of family. Estate matters. The phrase sounded too polished for the man who kept loose screws in baby food jars. My father did not talk like that. He talked about keys, belts, springs, and whether a thing could be made to run another year. I asked Mr. Hale if my mother knew he was coming. She knows I may attend, he said. May attend. Not would attend. I asked him what was in the envelope. I cannot discuss it over the phone, he said. But I can tell you this. Your father kept a file for you. I looked down at the cardboard box in my hand. For me? Yes, he said. He called it his daughter file. I had to put my shoulder against the wall. Mr. Hale went on. There is also a trust issue involving your mother. I do not want you surprised by that in public. That sentence did not explain anything. It changed the weight of the day. I asked one more question. Am I being accused of something? He did not answer quickly. Then he said, Mrs. Whitman has made statements about a bank account. There it was. Not the whole shape, just the edge of it. My mother had found money and turned it into a knife before I even knew it existed. I thanked him. I hung up. Then I did the second right thing. I wrote everything down. 10. 14 arrived funeral home. 10. 21 received personal effects box. 10. 24 sealed envelope marked Claire. 10. 30. One called Mr. Hale. Mentioned daughter file. Mentioned bank account. Mentioned trust issue. The notes were not elegant. They were not emotional. They were clean. A clean note can save you from a dirty story. I wanted to drive to my mother's house and ask her what she had done. I wanted to stand on her porch with the sealed envelope in my hand. I wanted to say, how many times did he ask for me? How many times did you answer for me? I did none of that. A public explosion would have been a gift to her. She would have wrapped it before I finished speaking. By lunch, she would have told everyone, grief had made me unstable. By dinner, I would have been the daughter who came home only to make a scene. So I kept the envelope sealed. I kept the receipt. I kept my mouth shut. That was not weakness. That was method. The service began at noon. My mother had done what she always did. She made absence look tasteful. The program had a photograph of my father standing outside his shop. One hand on the doorframe, my mother stood beside him. The family line named him as a beloved husband, brother, uncle, and friend. No daughter. I sat 4 rows back. The front row was full before I arrived. My mother had placed her black purse on the seat where a daughter would normally sit. It had a gold clasp and sat upright. Neat and smug, like it had been invited before me. Ruth Bennett turned from the choir section and saw me. She did not wave. She did not make a scene. She pressed 2 fingers to her lips, then lowered them to her hymnal. It was a small gesture. It was also the first human thing anyone in that room gave me. My mother saw it. Her chin lifted. During the service, she cried at the right times. She dabbed the corners of her eyes with a folded tissue. She let people touch her shoulder. When the pastor said my father had been a quiet servant, she closed her eyes like a woman receiving a crown. I looked at my father's casket and thought about his shop apron in the cardboard box. Quiet servant. He had been quiet. That part was true. The rest was more complicated. After the burial, we drove back to the church fellowship hall. I followed in my own car. Nobody asked me to ride with family. Nobody asked if I knew the way. I knew the way. I had washed casserole dishes in that church kitchen before I was old enough to drive. The fellowship hall had been arranged before we got there. 4 chairs at the family table. 4 water glasses. 4 folded napkins. My mother had left no 5th place to misunderstand. The photo board stood near the dessert table. My father as a boy. My father in uniform. My father beside the shop counter. My father and my mother at a church picnic. My father with my cousins. Not one photograph of him with me. That took work. Not forgetting. Work. Someone had gone through boxes and albums. Someone had chosen the version of his life where I had already been removed. Someone had carried that version into a church hall and set it on an easel. My mother touched the edge of the photo board as a woman from church praised it. I wanted people to remember the life he actually lived, she said. Actually. That word had teeth. I stood near the wall with the cardboard box tucked under my arm. I had not planned to bring it in. Then I saw the photo board. I kept the box with me. Mr. Hale had not arrived yet. That was the first moment I felt the floor tilt. My mother was already moving. She crossed the room with the pastor beside her and a small stack of envelopes in her hand. She was not rushing. Rushing would have looked guilty. She moved slowly, graciously, accepting hugs as if each one confirmed her right to the room. I heard my name behind me. Not Claire. My mother never used my name when a label would do. "You know, Claire," she told someone near the coffee table. "You make everything difficult." She said it softly enough to sound tired and loudly enough to be useful. I turned before I could stop myself. She smiled at me across the hall. It was a public smile, the kind that told everyone she was being brave. Then she looked at the cardboard box. For the first time that day, something in her face moved without permission. It was quick. A blink. A tiny stop in the mouth. But I saw it. She had not expected me to have anything of his. I did not speak to her. I walked to the side table and set the box down beside my purse. Then I took out my notebook and wrote one line. 12:58. Diane saw box. Reacted. It looked cold, even to me. But cold was better than being useful to her. A few minutes later, Mr. Hale came in through the side door. He was in his late 60s, narrow-shouldered, with a brown leather folder under one arm. He did not come to me first. That was smart. He greeted my mother. He shook the pastor's hand. He let the room see him as neutral before anyone needed him to be. My mother touched his sleeve. I could not hear all of it. I heard enough. "Surely we can keep this simple today," she said. Mr. Hale looked at her hand until she removed it. "We can keep it accurate," he said. That was the second crack. Ruth Bennett appeared beside me then. She had changed from her choir robe into a navy cardigan. Up close, she looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. "Claire?" she said. "Just my name. Not guest. Not difficult. Not poor Diane's daughter. My name." I nodded because I did not trust my throat. Ruth glanced toward my mother, then toward the box. "Your father kept asking if you had moved." The sentence was soft. It still hit like a dropped plate. "When?" I asked. "More than once," she said. "The last time was in April. He asked if I knew whether you were still on Linden Avenue." I had not lived on Linden Avenue for 5 years. My mother had known that. I had mailed the change of address to the house and the shop. Twice. Ruth looked down at her hands. I told him I did not know. I wish I had asked more. That was not a rescue. It was not a confession. It was something smaller and sadder. A woman realizing she had stood near a locked door and never checked who had the key. Across the room, my mother lifted a spoon and tapped it against a water glass. The room settled. She stood at the family table with 4 chairs behind her and my father's picture beside her shoulder. The sympathy card basket waited near the coffee urn. Empty. Ready. "Before we eat," she said, "I want to thank everyone who stood by Martin and me during these hard years. Martin and me. Not Martin and our family. Not Martin and his daughter." She turned slightly, just enough to include me without giving me a place. "Some matters are painful," she said. "But families sometimes have to face what money does to people." Mr. Hale's head came up. My mother was not waiting for him. She was building the room before he could read it. I closed my notebook. The sealed envelope was still inside my purse. The cardboard box was still beside my hand. Ruth stood on my left. Mr. Hale stood 10 feet away with the leather folder under his arm. My mother looked at me as if she had finally arranged every chair. Then she reached for the sympathy card basket. My mother picked up the sympathy card basket like it was a serving tray. She did not hand it to a cousin. She did not hand it to one of the church women who had offered to help. She carried it across the room herself, slow enough for people to notice, and stopped in front of me. "Claire," she said, "would you mind keeping these together?" Her voice was sweet. Her eyes were not. The basket was white wicker with a satin ribbon tied to one handle. People had dropped envelopes into it all afternoon. Condolence cards, checks for flowers, notes about casseroles, little paper pieces of grief. My mother held it out. I took it. There are people who can turn any object into a leash. My mother had done it with aprons, grocery lists, church bulletins, and now a basket full of sympathy cards for my dead father. "Thank you," she said. "You have always been better with the practical things." That sounded harmless if you did not know the house it came from. Ruth Bennett shifted beside me. She did not speak. Her fingers closed around the strap of her purse. Mr. Hale stood near the side wall with his leather folder tucked under his arm. His eyes moved from the basket to my mother's face, then to mine. If you have ever been accused in the same room where you were already made small, write one word in the comments. Enough. Not for me. For the version of you who stayed quiet too long. Because my mother was about to learn what she had actually placed in my hands. My mother turned back to the room. Everyone, please sit. Family at the front table. 4 chairs waited behind her. 4. My mother took the chair closest to my father's framed picture. A cousin took the next one. 2 older relatives filled the others because empty seats make people nervous, and my mother knew that too. She had left no open place for anyone to offer me. I stood with the basket. A woman from church looked at me, then looked away. Not cruelly. Worse. Carefully. I walked to the family table and kept my voice low. Where would you like me to sit? My mother did not lower hers. She glanced at the basket in my hands. Then she looked at the table. Guests don't sit with family. The room heard it. That was the point. For 1 second, I felt 10 years old, then 22. Then every age I had ever been when my mother found a way to put me near the table without letting me belong to it. I held the basket tighter. Then I'll stand, I said. That should have been enough for her. It was not. My mother placed one palm on the table and looked around the room with the face she used when she wanted sympathy before she spent it. I did not want to do this today, she said. People who do not want to do something do not clear a room for it first. She nodded toward Mr. Hale. But since Martin's attorney is here, and since there have been questions about certain funds, I think it is better for family to hear the truth together. Certain funds, not my father's account, not his savings, not money he had set aside. Certain funds. The kind of phrase that lets a person sound clean while they dirty someone else. Mr. Hale stepped forward. Mrs. Whitman, this may be better handled privately. My mother smiled at him. Privacy is how misunderstandings start, she said. That was a beautiful sentence from a woman who had spent years hiding mail. She turned to me. Claire, I want you to understand. No one is attacking you. That meant she was about to. She lifted a small stack of papers from beside my father's picture. I recognized none of them. Bank envelopes. Copies, maybe. Statements, maybe. Enough paper to make a room believe there was proof before anyone read a word. My heart did not pound. It went still. That was worse. My mother looked at the room, not at me. Martin was generous. Too generous. He believed the best in people, even when certain people stayed away for years and only seemed to appear when money was involved. A fork touched a plate somewhere behind me. I heard it because the room had gone quiet enough for metal to matter. Ruth whispered, Diane. My mother ignored her. She held up one page. There was an account in Claire's name. There it was. The basket got heavier in my hands. She had taken the thing I did not know existed and turned it into a motive. She had turned my father's last reach toward me, into my hand in his pocket. A man near the dessert table looked at me, as if he had just been given the missing piece. Someone's shoulders settled. That was how fast a lie could become furniture. Put it in the right room, and people leaned on it. Mr. Hale said, That is incomplete. My mother did not look at him. It is painful, she said, but grief does not erase facts. Facts. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because some words should bruise the mouth that uses them wrong. She went on. Martin was declining. He was lonely. He was vulnerable. And someone allowed him to send money into an account she never told the family about. Now the room looked at me fully, not all with anger, some with pity, some with curiosity, some with the hungry discomfort people feel when family trouble becomes public and they are allowed to watch. I could feel the old trap closing. If I defended myself too fast, I looked guilty. If I cried, I looked unstable. If I stayed silent, her version hardened. My mother had built the perfect little box. Every wall had my name on it. Mr. Hale stepped closer. Claire, you do not have to respond to this in public. That was the lowest point. For one breath, I wanted to leave. I wanted to set the basket down and walk out before my father's funeral became the final place my mother taught people how to misread me. I wanted to keep the sealed envelope sealed. I wanted dignity to mean escape. Then I looked at the family table. 4 chairs. My father's picture. My mother's papers. And the basket in my hands. She had put every piece of this room where she wanted it. Except one. The envelope in my purse had not come from her. Ruth touched my elbow. "Claire," she said softly, "you do not owe them a performance." That was the first mercy of the day. It gave me enough air to think. I set the basket on the edge of the family table. Not hard. Just enough for the envelopes inside to shift. My mother's eyes followed the sound. "Please do not make a scene," she said. There it was, the oldest rope. I looked at Mr. Hale. "If she is going to accuse me in this room, please read everything in this room." My voice sounded plain, almost dull. I was grateful for that. Dull is useful when someone is waiting for you to become dramatic. Mr. Hale studied me for 1 second, then he nodded. My mother gave a small laugh. "There is nothing else to read that changes what happened." That was her mistake. Not a stupid mistake. My mother was not stupid. She believed she had seen every paper that mattered, because she had always been the one who collected papers first. Programs. Cards. Statements. Photographs. She had built her whole life around being the woman who got to the folder before anyone else. But my father had not left this one with her. I reached into my purse and took out the sealed envelope from the funeral home. The room changed again. This time, I did not look around to see who noticed. That was not my job. I placed the envelope beside the basket. Mr. Hale's face tightened. My mother saw that. She saw it before she understood it. Her hand moved toward the papers beside my father's picture, then stopped. "What is that?" she asked. I did not answer her. I said to Mr. Hale, "This was in his personal effects box. The funeral director handed it to me at 10:21 this morning." She wrote the time on the receipt. Mr. Hale set his leather folder on the table. My mother stood up. "Martin was not well," she said quickly. "Anything he wrote near the end should be treated carefully." "Agreed," Mr. Hale said. That single word calmed her for half a second. Then he opened his folder. "That is why I brought the earlier file." The earlier file. My mother's mouth stayed open just long enough for me to see fear get in. Not panic. Not yet. Fear. Mr. Hale did not pull out a dramatic document. He pulled out a plain manila folder with my father's name on the tab. Then he looked at my mother. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, "before I read this, I need you to answer one question." My mother gripped the back of her chair. "Mr." Hale touched the sealed envelope with 2 fingers. "Did you ever return mail addressed to Claire?" Mr. Hale's question stayed in the room longer than any hymn had. My mother looked at him as if he had used the wrong language. Then she gave the room a small, wounded smile. It was the smile she used when someone else had made life untidy. "This is not the time," she said. Mr. Hale did not move. "It is the time you chose." A cousin shifted in one of the 4 family chairs. Ruth Bennett's hand went to the little cross at her throat. The pastor lowered his eyes to the table, but he did not step away. My mother placed both hands on the chair back. Martin was sick. There were many things coming to the house. I handled what needed handling. It sounded reasonable. That was her gift. She could make a locked door sound like housekeeping. "Mr." Hale opened the manila folder. He did not pull out the bank papers first. He pulled out envelopes. The first one was cream-colored. My name was written on the front in my father's square handwriting. The corner had a yellow return sticker. "Mr." Hale placed it on the table. Then he placed another beside it. Then another. Nobody spoke. He did not make a stack. He made a row. When the row reached the edge of the table, he began a second row. The envelopes kept coming. White, cream, pale blue, some thin, some thick. All addressed to me. All returned. 42. The number did not need explaining. It sat there in paper. Ruth covered her mouth with both hands. One of the church women pushed her chair back, then stopped with one hand still on the seat. The cousin at the table took his napkin off his lap and folded it, unfolded it, folded it again. My mother stared at the envelopes. For the first time that day, she had nothing arranged. Mr. Hale touched the first envelope. "Did you return these?" My mother swallowed. The movement was small. It worked its way down her throat like a stone. "I protected my husband from distress," she said. There it was. Not denial. A reason. Cold. Clean. Useful. I could almost hear the shape of it in her head. A sick man did not need upset. A daughter who caused trouble did not deserve access. A wife had the right to decide what pain entered the house. That was how she made cruelty feel responsible. Mr. Hale asked his second question. Did you tell Martin that Claire refused contact? My mother looked at me then. Not at him. At me. You did refuse, she said. You stayed away. I did not raise my voice. I wrote. She gave a small shake of her head. Letters are easy, showing up is different. That was when Ruth stepped forward. Not far, just one step. Enough to leave the wall. Diane, Ruth said. He asked me if Claire had moved. My mother turned on her. Ruth, please. Ruth's face reddened. She did not back up. He brought one of those envelopes to my porch and asked if I thought daughters stopped loving their fathers without saying goodbye. The pastor looked up then. My mother's fingers dug into the chair back. Mr. Hale opened the sealed envelope from the funeral home. He did it slowly, with a letter opener, not because he was dramatic, but because careful hands make lies nervous. Inside was one folded page and a bank slip. He looked at me first. Your father asked that this be read only if the account was used to accuse you. My mother let out one thin laugh. So now Martin predicted all this? No, Mr. Hale said. He prepared for any public accusation tied to the account. That mattered. My father had not guessed the room. He had set a net around the lie. Mr. Hale unfolded the page. My father's handwriting filled it. It was shaky in places. Still his. I knew the M in Martin. I knew the way he crossed a T, like he was fixing a crooked shelf. Mr. Hale read, Claire never asked me for money. I opened this account because I was told my daughter had stopped loving me, and I never believed it. My mother's hand slipped from the chair. The room did not go silent. Real rooms rarely do. Someone breathed hard through his nose. A spoon clicked against a saucer. The old refrigerator in the kitchen kicked on. Mr. Hale kept reading. I sent her letters. If they came back, I kept them. If they did not come back, I hoped one reached her. If this file is being opened, then someone has tried to make my love for my daughter look like her greed. My chest tightened. Not because of the money. Because my father had known the shape of the lie before he died. Mr. Hale set the letter down beside the envelopes. He took out the bank slip next. The account balance at the last statement was $74,600. There were no withdrawals by Claire Whitman. He placed the slip flat on the table. Just a number. Just ink. But it cleared years of dirt from my name. My mother found her voice. He was confused. Anyone can see that. He was an old man trying to ease his guilt. Mr. Hale closed the folder halfway. The letter was signed in my office. Your physician's note was attached because you requested proof that Martin was clear-minded for the trust that same week. That was the hinge. My mother had asked for proof that my father was sound when it helped her. Now she wanted him helpless because it helped me. The pastor's mouth tightened. Ruth shut her eyes. The cousin at the table stopped folding the napkin. Mr. Hale slid a second folder from beneath the first. Brown leather. My mother's name was on a tab. He did not read the whole thing. He did not need to. Mrs. Whitman, he said. Martin wrote one plain rule into the papers for the widow money. If anyone used a public lie to push Claire out of the family record, that person lost the right to manage it. My mother looked at the folder like it had become a live animal. Mr. Hale reached for the leather folder in front of her. He removed a page with her signature on it. Then he placed it face down beside his own folder. One motion. One small sound. Paper leaving her side of the table. That transfer is effective now, he said. My mother stood very still. The loss did not look like lightning. It looked like her hand searching for a chair she no longer owned. The money she had expected to manage for years was no longer in her hands. She had not lost everything. Stories like this do not need everything. She lost the things she had been standing on, the money she was about to manage, the clean widow roll, the right to use my father's name as a shield while she erased his daughter. She looked at Mr. Hale. We can correct this tomorrow. No, he said. You made the accusation in public. The consequence began in public. He said it without cruelty. That made it heavier. The pastor pushed my father's framed picture back from the edge of the table, as if even the picture needed distance from her. Ruth reached for one of the returned envelopes. then stopped and folded her hands instead. A woman from the kitchen doorway took off her apron and held it against her chest. Nobody had to say the room had changed. The room was doing it. I almost reached for the sympathy card basket. Old training is stubborn. A part of me still wanted to gather the loose things, make the table neat, and save everyone the trouble of looking. Then I saw my name on all those envelopes, again and again, in my father's hand. So I left the mess where it was. My mother looked at me then. Really looked. For years I had been a problem to file away. A difficult girl. A guest. A practical pair of hands. Now I stood at the family table with 42 envelopes between us, and my father's handwriting on every one. I did not smile. I did not tell her she deserved it. There are moments when adding words makes truth smaller. I only picked up the first envelope. The paper was soft at the corners. My name was still clear. My mother whispered, "Claire." It was the first time she had said my name all day without using it as a tool. I held the envelope, but I looked at my father's picture. "I was never a guest to him," I said. No one answered. Mr. Hale gathered the bank slip, the trust page, and the signed letter into one neat pile. He left the envelopes on the table. That was right. Those did not belong in a folder yet. The room needed to see them. My mother sank into the chair behind her. The chair scraped the floor. That was the last sound I remember before the day changed from a funeral into evidence. For a long moment, nobody moved toward the food. Not my mother, not the cousins, not the women who had been waiting near the casseroles. I remember the steam fading above the pans in the kitchen doorway while everyone stood around a dead man's lunch and tried to understand what had just been served. Mr. Hale did not make a speech. He gathered the bank slip, the signed letter, and the trust page into his brown folder. Then he turned the folder so the clasp faced him, not my mother. "Small thing. Clear thing." My mother saw it. "The widow money will be handled by the neutral trustee named in Martin's papers," he said. "The transfer is effective today." He did not say $185,000 like a headline. He did not need to. My mother knew the number. So did Mr. Hale. I learned it later, in his office, with a paper cup of water in my hand and my father's letter on the desk between us. That day, I only saw what loss looked like on her. Her hand went to the place on the table where the folder had been. Nothing was there. She touched the wood once, then pulled her fingers back as if the table had embarrassed her. By the next week, the changes looked ordinary from the outside. Big consequences often arrive in plain clothes. My mother returned a safety deposit key in a white bank envelope. Her name came off the account for my father's memorial gift. The church office asked Ruth Bennett to help collect cards for the scholarship fund because, as one woman put it, Diane needs rest. Rest. That was the polite word. No one said she had lost the right to stand beside my father's name and decide who counted. No one said she had used grief like a rope and pulled until it snapped in her own hands. They said she needed rest. I let them. I had spent too many years correcting the wrong rooms. Mr. Hale called me 3 days after the luncheon. He asked me to come by his office and sign a few forms for the account my father had opened. I almost did not go. Money had become the loudest part of the story, and I hated that. It made everything look smaller than it was. But I went. The office was above a dentist with a narrow staircase and a fake plant by the copier. Mr. Hale handed me the final statement. $74,600. My father's name appeared again and again in the deposit history. Small amounts, uneven amounts, human amounts. $30, $75, $200, a little more after Christmas. It did not look like a fortune when I read it that way. It looked like a man putting one hand through a locked door, month after month, hoping his daughter might feel it someday. I did not spend it quickly. I used part of it to settle the last bills on my father's repair shop. The landlord had already taken down the sign. The front window still had dust in the corners where the letters had been. I paid a local handyman to repaint the door. I replaced the cracked glass near the handle. Before the keys were turned in, I swept the floor myself. Not because he had been perfect, because he had tried. There is a difference. I kept the rest of the money in the account for a while. I did not touch it when my car needed tires. I did not touch it when my rent went up. I wanted to know I could leave one thing from my father unspent. 3 weeks after the funeral, my mother called. I knew her number. I let it ring twice. Then I answered because a boundary is not fear. A boundary is a door you choose to open only as far as you mean to. She did not say hello. She said, I was grieving. I sat at my kitchen table. The tin box was beside my elbow. One of my father's returned envelopes lay on top of it. I know, I said. She breathed out like I had offered her a chair. Then I said, you were grieving in a room full of people. You still knew where to aim. The breath stopped. For once, I did not fill the silence for her. She said the trust language was unfair. She said Mr. Hale had humiliated her. She said people at church were acting strange. She said Ruth had no right to repeat a private conversation. She said my father had not understood how much she had carried. All of that might have been true in pieces. Pieces can still be arranged into a lie. I said, if you need to discuss paperwork, you can write to me. Claire, she said. My name again. Softer this time. Smaller. I wanted it to fix something. That was the part I did not expect. Even after all of it, some young part of me still leaned toward the sound. Some young part of me still wanted a mother to arrive late and be real. But late is not the same as real. I said, I am not coming back to the table you built for me. Then I ended the call. I did not block her number that day. I did not need a dramatic gesture. I wrote down the boundary and kept it. Paper doesn't forget. 2 letters came from her that winter. The first explained. The second came with a check folded inside, as if money could step into the room wearing an apologies coat. I sent the check back. I kept neither letter. Some paper is proof. Some paper is just another hand reaching for the story. A month later, Ruth Bennett mailed me a photograph. It showed my father outside his shop in a brown jacket, one hand on the doorframe, his hair flattened by wind. Behind him, the sign in the window said, back in 10 minutes, his smile was crooked. His shirt pocket held 2 pens and a small screwdriver. On the back, Ruth had written, he asked me to take this the day he brought the envelope to my porch. I put that photograph in the tin box, not on the wall, not in a shrine. In the tin box, beside one returned envelope, the card that said, for things worth keeping, and the final letter that had cleared my name after my father was gone. That was enough. My life did not become soft overnight. Stories like mine do not end with music swelling and every wound lining up to apologize. My mother still lived in the same town. Some relatives never called. Some sent messages that began with, I hope you can find it in your heart, which usually meant they had not found much in theirs. I did not answer all of them. That was new. I went back to work. I checked attendance lists. I called mothers who were tired. I called fathers who were trying. I watched for missing names. When a child disappeared from the page, I did not assume the child had stopped wanting to be found. My father had taught me that without knowing it. A boundary is not a locked door. It is a door that finally has my name on it. People talk about family like blood is the final proof. I used to believe that too. Then I saw 42 envelopes on a church table, and I understood something cleaner. Family is not the person who controls the chair. Family is the person who keeps writing your name after someone else removes it. Family is the woman who steps forward with shaking hands and tells the truth she should have told sooner. Family is the small box you carry home because one person, however imperfectly, left you something worth keeping. That is the family I kept. That's my story. 42 returned envelopes. 1 secret account. 1 funeral basket my mother thought would keep my hands busy. 1 father, who had been trying to reach me the whole time. And 1 chair I stopped asking for. If you have ever been made to feel like a guest in the place where you should have been loved, hear me. You do not have to keep auditioning for a seat at a table built to shame you. Share this with someone who was erased quietly. Tell me in the comments what you would have done when the first envelope hit the table. And subscribe for more stories about dignity, truth, and the day silence finally breaks.